I'm going to talk today a little bit about forging your path as a developer. I hope everyone is enjoying PG Connect so far, especially in this virtual world, and everyone's staying safe and healthy. As this talk is only 15 minutes, I'm obviously not going to be able to go into a huge amount of detail, but I'm going to be concise as possible on some of the key takeaways for your journey as a developer. So firstly, just a little bit about me, just go through that quickly. My name is Leanne. I'm the head of the Riot Forge team at Riot Games, heading up our third-party publishing division. I have three clear passions in life. One is games. I have loved games ever since I was small. And the second one is cats. These are my two cats, Bailey and Cleo. And then everything to do with cars I love. So I love Formula One, have a pretty big obsession with cars. The context of my talk today definitely comes from a variety of companies that I've worked from during my career. So here's just a quick overview of my background. Firstly, always loved games since I was very young. Got an Atari ST, and my first game that I remember playing was Nebulous, which is a platform game where you play this kind of like frog thing. Definitely fell in love with that game. Played many hours of that game, and then moved on to the Sega Mega Drive, where I fell in love with Streets of Rage. And I knew at that point I really wanted to make games. I wanted to create these things that created that same feeling for me. And so I went to university, and then after university I joined Stainless Games and worked on games such as Scrabble, Risk, Magic the Gathering, and started as a QA tester and worked my way through QA management, assistant producer. And then I moved to Japan for a couple of years, where I worked on the publishing side for a company called Tsutaya, who do a variety of different entertainment products within Japan, including video games. And then when I returned back from Japan, I got the awesome opportunity to move to Electronic Arts and work on Need for Speed, which, as I mentioned, was a kind of a dream come true for me, because I love games and I love cars, and it was kind of the perfect combination. So I stayed there for many years and did lots of Need for Speeds, and then got to a point where I did need, a bit of a change. So had the amazing opportunity to move to Riot, where I am now, working on League of Legends, which, still blows my mind that 70 million people play that every month, and we bring a lot of joy to people's lives, so that makes me happy. So a little bit about Riot Forge. We are the third-party publishing label within Riot Games. We recently announced, so you may have heard back in November, December time, that we are working with a variety of external developers to make different types of League of Legends games. And really different types of games that are very different to what you see coming else from Riot Games. So us at Riot, we're very focused on competitive live service games. We serve that audience extremely well. We have League of Legends the MOBA, Legends of Runeterra, Wild Rift, and TFT, and their motivations are very focused on competitive mastery. They're the reasons why our players play the games. They want to keep getting better and better. Whereas Riot Forge is on the other end of that scale. We're very focused on single-player narrative-driven experiences, and we want to provide a way for our players to be able to experience the League of Legends characters and the stories and the relationships between those characters in a way that you can't necessarily do in a competitive game. So that's what Riot Forge is focusing on. And every day, I get to work with different developers, and we're looking for new partners all of the time during Riot Forge to see what other games we can bring to our players. So I've taken, some of those experiences looking for developers and the developers that we're currently working with, and those learnings, and I'm basically going to try and summarize those today of some of the key things that a publisher like Riot Forge is looking for and also will care about. So really the goal of today's talk is to give you all a way to think about how you can stand out when it comes to partnerships if you're looking for a publisher or investor. It's obviously not a one size fits all. So, I don't expect this to apply to all partnerships. It just really summarizes some of the things that may help you as a developer to stand out and get attention from certain publishers. But ultimately, I just would love to leave you guys with some thoughts about how you can stand out for whatever collaboration opportunities that you're potentially looking for. So there are many different types of collaborations, whether that's a developer to developer relationship, or developer to publisher or investor. There's many different ways that we can collaborate when we make games. And collaborations could be an investment in the studio, or licensing of IP, traditional work for hire, or like we're doing with Riot Forge, where we're focused on the League of Legends IP, but really leveraging the experience of the developers that we work with and allowing them to fully own the creative of the game, to reimagine League of Legends into a different way for our players. And what we do on League of Legends and Riot Forge is definitely a bit of a mixture. It's not traditional work for hire, because we're not asking developers to build a specific type of game or already have an idea in our mind. But it's also not fully licensed, because we still maintain the ownership of the IP, and we also fund the full development process for our developers. So there are many different types of partnerships that you could be looking for, and it really depends on where you want your studio to go and the overall vision that you have for your studio. And depending on that, different types of collaborations would make sense, whether you are working in your own IP and want a publisher to publish that, or if you're looking to partner with a specific publisher that already has an IP. So once you've figured out what type of partnership you would like to go for, that's when you can dig into, okay, how do I stand out from the crowd, from other developers that are also looking for these type of collaborations? So for me personally, and for how we've been approaching things, I believe there are three main areas to focus on that could help you when you are looking for partnerships, and help differentiate against others and set your studio up for success. This could also apply, when you're pitching your ideas or presenting your studio's vision or games to partners. So the first one is really around studio identity. What is your studio? What do they stand for? What are some of the key things that you do within your studio? And the second one is game quality and the products that you've made before, and how this represents your studio. And then lastly, your unique DNA, what stands you out from the rest. And I'm going to dig into a little bit about why these are important and what they mean. So firstly, for studio identity. So when a studio has a really clear identity with the way they approach development, it creates a really strong vision. And in order to achieve this, you really need to think about how you see yourself as a studio. Are you work for hire? Are you an outsource? Do you work on other people's IPs or your own IPs? What is that thing that really stands you out as a studio? And really lean into that. What is your speciality, and why should people work with you? You have a clear set of experience and expertise. And think about that in the way that your studio has its identity. And a good way to look at this is through your strategy and what your long-term goals are. Where do you want to be as a studio? What's your strategy to get there? And then from that, what's your clear identity, and why do you really exist? Along with studio identity, when I think about this, I always reflect on a book that I've read, this book here called Essentialism by Greg McClellan. It's a really interesting case study in here that makes me think about studio identity. Essentially, it's a marketing agency company who were really struggling in their current times. They did a bit of everything and they just weren't getting clients. But their CEO knew that one of the things they did really great and consistently was creating presentations, extremely high quality, polished presentations for their clients. So they went on an offsite, they went through, all of the successful clients and partnerships that they'd had in the past, and what the reoccurring themes were, and why clients have decided to, continue to come to them for this work. And they analyzed everything. And they looked and they realized that, presentations was the key reason why their clients kept coming back. It was the thing that they did really, really well. So they decided to pivot their company to focus solely on offering, really high quality presentations. And as soon as they did that, they created a really clear identity for their studio. They leaned into that one thing that they did really well, and the company went from struggling to thriving because clients knew exactly who they should go for that one particular thing. And I feel like this could apply for game studios as well. Obviously, there's a balance. And this is the extreme example of going in and focusing on, one particular thing. But, game studios could do it with, genre or the type of experience, you are best at building. And it doesn't mean you have to make the same game every time. As mentioned, this is an extreme example and maybe works better for like the marketing and agency industry. So it doesn't mean you have to make the same game every time. But you have to have that one identification, that one thing that appears in everything that you make that really solidifies your studio identity. And then obviously game quality is a huge thing that we look for, ensuring that the games that have come out of your studio are the highest possible quality within the constraints you have, of course. Not everyone is going to be making, $1 million games. It has to be the quality that you can achieve within the budget that you have, within the time that you have, within the people that you have in the studio. What's the absolute, quality game that you can create with the resources and the constraints that you have? And it does not mean that every game you make has to be, 95 Metacritic or anything like that. That's not realistic. There are definitely different layers of quality. What's important is that you're able to show that you can hit that quality bar that you can achieve as a studio. It also doesn't mean that your games have to sell, millions and millions of units. Not everyone, again, has the resources to be able to achieve that. But showing how you value quality and that you care about making great games and that you've achieved that previously within, where your studio sits. That's the important part, is really ensuring that quality comes first and that the experience you're creating for players comes first, and showing, that potential as well. And then this one, I actually feel, for me personally, is potentially the most important one, which is unique DNA. And when I like using the term DNA because it kind of forms that creative triangle of design, narrative, and art. And those three areas are where we can innovate quite a lot in video games and create a very clear identity and unique representation of the games that we're making. Design, narrative, and art, these are some of the core creative elements that make up a video game. And as a studio, it's really powerful to have something that is unique to you as a studio and your games and help drive, again, that identity that you're trying to create for your studio. And so, this is just kind of like a montage of some, games that have done really great, unique visual styles or narrative. And as a studio, this is some of these examples are great. There's other examples as well, whether it's a unique art style that you have created, some of the best pixel art, or you have a unique animation, or your studios have a unique art style that really stands out, like Gris, for example. It could be with narrative, could be the way that you tell stories in a game. Are you great with VO? You really understand how to create that emotional resonance and that emotional connection between players, like in Haven. It can also come from design. Is there a certain mechanic that you've coined or a certain design system that you've created that you use within your games that really helps you stand out from other games in that genre space? Essentially, having something within this DNA triangle just really helps you put a stamp on what you are as a studio and where you excel. And if the publisher or an investor is looking for something like that, then you can fill that gap. Don't be afraid to lean into that thing that makes you different from other studios. So to summarize, 3 key areas that I believe can help you stand out and get attention from publishers and different types of collaborations, depending on what you're looking for. Spend some time thinking about your studio identity and what the focus is, for you and what you and the whole team do really well. And finding that path can really help amplify that identity that you have. Game quality can come in many ways, as I mentioned, and even if you haven't made a game before, the emphasis on quality can come through a prototype. It can come through the way that you pitched your game. just ensuring that you show that you value quality, I think, is the important thing. Not everybody has to sell millions of units and hit, 95 plus Metacritic. It's all about, within the resources that you have, do you care about quality? And most of us, do care about making great games for our players. And then lastly, your DNA, your design, your narrative, and your art. What is your differentiator in the game, and how do you approach design, and how do you stand out from other games and other studios? So once you've kind of thought about that, then it's all about, how do you find a partner to collaborate with? And of course, there's many ways to achieve this, including events like this, and conferences and networking, and LinkedIn. The one thing I would recommend on reaching out to publishers on LinkedIn is being really specific. I do get a lot of people reach out to me and say, oh, I've got a game idea for a League of Legends, can we chat? And that's great. I love people reaching out, but I would say it's worth being very upfront about what you can provide. What's the benefit, what's the value? Be very specific about your unique offering, because that's what's going to really get the attention. So many people email with the same kind of set template or the same information, and that makes it very hard to stand out and get someone's attention, especially with publishers and investors that are getting a lot of that all of the time. So you really need to stand out and lean into your unique identity, and be really upfront about that if you are contacting publishers or investors or collaborators on platforms like LinkedIn. Really think about how you can stand up and be specific in what you're offering. And then once you've found a partner or publisher, you want to make the most out of that collaboration. And this doesn't apply to all partnerships. Again, this isn't a one size fits all. This is just, some information that may help, because it really depends on the level of support that you're getting from your publisher or from your partnership. And the support can change based on, of course, business terms and the relationship you create. So it's definitely not one size fits all. But the key is that you do want a publisher that can take, some of the pressure off, so that you as a studio can focus on making the game the best possible game it can be. And a great publisher will focus on amplifying your game with bespoke marketing, game trailers, events, etc., and really understand how to gain that awareness and ultimately the acquisition from your players. That should be, the role that the publisher achieves for your studio and for your game, so that you can focus on the development and making it great, and the publisher can focus on really getting that game into players' hands. So the developer-publisher partnership should definitely be a two-way and benefit both parties. In a perfect world, the publisher gets the developer's unique experience and amazing talent, and the developer gets the support required to really get the game into players' hands in the best possible way. And both together means, you end up with an awesome game that players are aware of and they have fun playing. So that's just really a quick fire summary of some of the ways that might help you stand out when it comes to finding a partnership or finding collaboration or finding a publisher. And that is it. So any questions? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Leanne. I'm back for a bit, but yeah, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for coming here and being part of this rather different digital conference. I will give you a clap, and I'm sure everyone else is clapping. It's weird without that visual and audio feedback, isn't it?
It's kind of strange.
Yeah, having the audience to play off. I know we've got one question not related to games, but I think we'll ask anyway. Is was that your Mustang in the picture?
Oh yes, that is my Mustang, yes.
So one of our anonymous attendees, I'm sure, is very impressed that was your Mustang.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got some, the person has come back going, wow, with exclamation marks. So,
Thank you. She is, yes, she's definitely my baby. I do love cars.
Yeah, I just, obviously, first of all, I wanted to, yeah, like I say thank you. It's a very, very fascinating and interesting talk for me, because obviously with me leading the Big Indie Pitch, you said a lot of the things that I spend half my life talking about to everyone. So it's very good to have those kind of things reiterated, but also with some different takes, different opinions, you know, but largely the same kind of advice about being unique and having that culture and identity. One thing that I am interested in asking is that I think it'd be good to, you know, for you to share with the audience, just like I often do during the pitches, is, you know, you obviously talked about all the things to do, but when you get pitches, like you teased at the end about, you know, when people come to you saying they've got some great ideas, or with what you've seen in other areas, what do you find that there's any common mistakes that people make in terms of pitching their idea or showcasing what they're about? And, you know, just some things that maybe would be good for people to note, that these are like common errors that I suppose people make.
Yeah, there's one that really stands out to me, and it's a very easy one to address as well. The amount of times that I have pitches where it's very clear that the person pitching has not done any research. And I feel like it is so important to, you know, do research on who you're pitching to, do research on what they're looking for, and do research on, you know, maybe some of the games that they've already, you know, published themselves or they've invested in, so that you're really understanding the audience. Because I've seen many times where, you know, developers are really invested in the idea that they have and the pitch that they have, which is awesome, but that might not apply to every single type of audience. And I think if you try and pitch something that just isn't applicable, it's going to fall down. So my number one advice would be research your audience, research who you're pitching to, really be sure that you know what they're looking for, and if it's the right fit. If it's not the right fit, it's probably better not to pitch, or to, you know, pitch if you want to, you know, switch up your idea, or if there's something that might fit better. But really think about how your pitch is going to fit with who you're pitching to.
I think that's a really interesting point, and we find that, I suppose, on the editorial side a lot. I know that, you know, one or two of our editors are I think are lurking in the attendees, and I'm sure, or at least I hope they would agree, is that, like, it's best for you to not only, you know, work out the best channel. We obviously have PC channels, we have VR channels, and obviously we're best known for mobile. But not just that, it's also good to find the right person. You know, don't be spamming the editor with absolutely everything that you've got if what you're actually looking for is the reviews editor, or the person who does the news, or anything like that. And, you know, and I think you gave some really great advice about, you know, focusing on the unique stuff. And what I would add to that is, sometimes it's also less is more. It's not best to overload people as well. I find, I don't know if you find that as well. It's like, stick to your, you know, your standout moments to an extent. And then if you impress them, then you'll have all the time in the world to go into all the extra stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. That is, and it's a really tough balance, isn't it? Because when you get that meeting with someone, you're like, I want to just go through everything. And I completely understand that, but I do agree with you, less is more, and really tailoring your pitch to who you're presenting to, and really understanding like what pieces of content that they really need to see, and focusing on those pieces. And again, it is hard, especially, you know, events like GDC and stuff, where you're quick firing across, you know, different pitches really quickly, and you don't necessarily have time to tailor. But sometimes it might actually be better to stop and take a breather, rather than going into something that could have, you know, a detrimental effect, for example.
Yeah, we have had a question come in, which I'll quickly ask. Does it matter for you guys if the game idea comes from an indie studio, as in a team, or a solo developer on their own? Is that important to you?
For Riot Forge specifically, we are looking for development studios, specifically devs that have experience shipping games before. At some point in the future, I would love Forge to, you know, branch out a little bit, but for now, we are very focused on experienced dev studios. There are definitely other publishers and investors and collaborators out there that would be happy to take on, you know, individual people. You just need to find that particular partner.
Yeah, I mean, I must, you know, apologies for the shameless plug, but I can say, like, for example, on my Big Indie Pitch side of things, we definitely have publishers such as, you know, like our sponsors, Plugin Digital, Lion Studios, Azure, Pocky, and then Quali. They don't mind whether it's one individual or others. So there's obviously various different avenues, but I think it's a really great question for you guys specifically, because, like you say, you know your audience.
Exactly, yeah. For Riot Forge, a lot of this applies. We are looking for, experienced developers that have shipped games before that have a unique identity that would be a great way to reimagine League of Legends.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. And I think after hearing that talk, I mean, it's amazing we had so much in common in the sense of I love Streets of Rage
Yes.
too. I went and lived in Japan. I worked for EA after that.
Oh, well, there you go then. Similar careers.
Yes. But yes, we should talk. You make a brilliant judge on our big indie pitches.
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah, well, I will be in touch with you after. But yeah, in the meantime, if there's no other questions, I will let you get back into the web space, whether you're going to be enjoying the rest of the talks or getting off to some meetings or anything else. Enjoy the rest of the day. And yeah, we can talk more about other stuff. But thank you for such an amazing talk.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.